This trade uncertainty, the actual tariffs, but then also the uncertainty around what other trade actions could be taken by the world's largest economy, are having an impact. They're having an impact on the United States itself. That impact on the United States will continue to grow. The impact of weakening U.S. economy has an impact on everyone else.
To be honest with you, Canada only works as a state. It doesn't. We don't need anything they have. As a state, it would be one of the great states anyway. This would be the most incredible country visually.
Well, I've been clear, personally I've been clear, the ministers behind me, I think to an individual, when asked, have been clear that we will never, ever, in any way, shape or form, be part of the United States.
The U.S.-Canada trade war is moving in directions that we have never expected. Canada refused to sit back but made a counterattack that might just cripple the U.S. economy. The tit-for-tat tariffs are having a major impact on the economies of both countries, toppling their financial markets, industries like automobile and energy trade. From Donald Trump refusing to relent to Canada planning to cut off the electricity, there's no telling when this trade war can end. Don't miss out on the latest updates and subscribe to our channel. Thanks. Now let's get into the video. Canada now in a trade war with U.S.
As President Trump stated yesterday, he is still committed to placing tariffs on Canada starting as early as tomorrow, possibly. Now, we don't know precisely what that could look like, but I do know two things. First, if the president does choose to implement any tariffs against Canada, we're ready with a response. A purposeful, forceful, but reasonable, immediate response. That if tariffs are implemented against Canada, we will respond. We won't relent until tariffs are removed and, of course, everything is on the table.
Since United States President Donald Trump started his administration, he has made tariffs the center of his international trade policies. He started by imposing 25% tariffs on Canadian imports, sending shockwaves through Canadian consumers and businesses. The 25% tariff will be on all imports from Canada, except oil and energy, which would be taxed at 10%. In response to this order, the former Canadian Prime Minister did not sit back. Instantly, he announced that Canada would retaliate with immediate 25% tariffs on 30 billion Canadian dollars on American exports, and after 3 weeks, it would expand to 155 billion Canadian dollars worth of goods. Trump had claimed that the tariffs are meant to reduce the U.S. trade deficit with Canada. He also accused Canada and Mexico of not securing their borders, causing illegal immigration and the illegal smuggling of fentanyl into the U.S. Trudeau and other Canadian officials have called Trump's tariffs unjustified. Trudeau claims that Canada has already put different measures in place to secure the border and has reduced the smuggling of fentanyl across the border. He, along with other Canadians, believe that Trump intends to use tariffs to force Canada to become the 51st state of the U.S. It's not surprising, since Trump has repeatedly said that Canada is meant to be part of the U.S. and that the Canadian annexation will remove the threat of tariffs.
If he wants to destroy our economy and our families, I will shut down the electricity going down to the U.S. And I'm telling you, we will do it. It's unfortunate. I would rather ship you more electricity, ship you more critical minerals. I want to ship you more energy, more potash to keep your farmers going, and uranium that you use for your nuclear power.
Canada has said that it is ready to respond to the U.S. and accompany it all the way if Trump decides to continue the trade war. The Premier of Ontario, Doug Ford, has already threatened to cut off electricity to 3 U.S. states, adding a 25% surcharge to their electricity exports to the U.S. He also ordered the Liquor Control Board of Ontario to end the sale of American alcohol. Canadian officials in other regions like Alberta and Quebec are also reviewing all contracts involving American suppliers and are removing American products from its shelves. Canadian new PM vows trade war with Trump.
There's someone who's trying to weaken our economy. Yeah, Donald Trump. Donald Trump. And Donald Trump, as we know, has put, as the Prime Minister just said, unjustified tariffs on what we build, on what we sell, on how we make a living.
After Justin Trudeau stepped down, the new Prime Minister of Canada, Mark Carney, has won the race and immediately vowed to win the trade war with the U.S. and President Donald Trump. Becoming prime minister at this turbulent time was tough, and in most of his victory speech, he attacked Trump. This is because Trump has been imposing tariffs on Canada and threatening to make the country the 51st U.S. state. In his speech, he said, "Americans should make no mistake. In trade, as in hockey, Canada will win." Much of his speech focused on what he called unjustified tariffs and said that he can't let Trump succeed because he was attacking Canadian workers, families, and businesses. He also added that the Canadian government will keep the tariffs on U.S. imports until the Americans show Canada some respect. The thing is, Canada's economy depends a lot on trade with the U.S. Financial analysts have said that Canada risks falling into a recession if the tariffs threatened by Trump are fully imposed. Carney also promised to secure the Canadian borders, which is one of the demands that Trump has made of Canada, as he has accused them of failing to control the flow of migrants and fentanyl going south.
We didn't ask for this fight, but Canadians are always ready when someone else drops the gloves. So the Americans, they should make no mistake, in trade as in hockey, Canada will.
In response to Trump claiming that the U.S. could annex Canada as the 51st state, Carney said in his speech, "We will never, ever in any way, shape, or form be part of the United States." Still, Carney had said that he looks forward to speaking to Trump and negotiating with him. Carney had said, "We're masters in our home. We're in charge, you know?" He also added that the nature of Canada won't allow it to join the U.S., as the two countries are very different. With Canada responding to tariffs with retaliatory tariffs, Carney had added that the truth will eventually be out as they are retaliating for the Canadian people and their jobs. He also added, "The Americans will understand as well." Trump team says, tariffs won't end.
Fresh off his trip to Canada for G7 meetings, Marco Rubio says the Trump administration wants to redo trade deals with all of its partners.
We're going to reset the baseline, and then we can enter into these bilateral agreements, potentially, with countries so that our trade is fair.
That baseline is expected to be reset April 2nd, when Donald Trump says he will impose new tariffs based on what he calls fairness.
Trump has already imposed tariffs on Canada, Mexico, and China, but he has shown no signs of stopping. In the latest news of the U.S.-Canada trade war, the U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent had announced that the Trump administration will give countries a particular proposed tariff rate based on their own rates. Some tariff rates will be low, and for others it would be high. They might also have the opportunity to negotiate around the tariff. These tariffs will be imposed on April 2nd to balance out the trade practices that the U.S. administration deems as unfair. According to Bessent, the tariffs are designed to protect the U.S. economy. In his speech, Bessent had said, "We are going to go to them and say, look, here's where we think the tariff levels are. Non-tariff barriers, currency manipulation, unfair funding, labor suppression, and if you will stop this, we will not put up the tariff wall." The Trump administration had recently rejected a plan to simplify protocols for selecting new tariff rates for many other countries by dividing them into 3 tariff tiers. According to the Wall Street Journal, the Trump team discussed whether they could divide the new tariffs into low, medium, and high rates, but they denied it and decided to individualize the tariff rates for each nation. To make things worse, Trump had said that his recently imposed 25% tariffs on all foreign imported steel and aluminum into the U.S. are here to stay, and no single country is exempted. What's more, additional tariffs will kick in on April 2nd. Every country is watching and anticipating the kinds of tariffs that Trump might impose on them by April 2nd. Trade war heats up.
President Trump is reversing his new tariff threat on Canada after Ontario rescinded its charge on electricity earlier today. Ontario agreed to suspend its 25% surcharge on electricity imports, or exports rather, to Michigan, Minnesota, and New York. President Trump earlier today threatened a 50% tariff on the country's aluminum and steel. Instead, 25% tariffs on all steel and aluminum. The U.S. imports, including from Canada, are set to take effect at midnight on Wednesday.
The U.S.-Canada trade war is heating up, especially when Trump announced a shocking plan to double the tariffs on steel and aluminum from Canada to 50%. As expected, this was met with a lot of uproar from Canada, as it caused Ontario Premier Ford to impose a levy on electricity exports to the U.S. Feeling threatened, Ford had backed off his plan for the 25% surcharge on electricity. If this plan is executed, it could leave 1.5 million U.S. homes in darkness or pay more for their electricity bill. Just hours after announcing his double tariffs, Trump immediately went back on his word, taking it back to 25%. Ford had threatened that he would place the electricity tariff on New York, Minnesota, and Michigan, adding around $100 per month to the bills of Americans. He will follow through with this if Trump refuses to stop its tariff threats against Canada's exports into the U.S. With Trump making plans and then reneging on them in a few hours, it caused a lot of scrambling in financial markets. The back and forth between the U.S. and Canada has caused a lot of unsettling in the financial markets, especially for automobile companies like Ford and General Motors. In fact, the U.S. stocks have fallen hard since Trump took office on January 20th, with about $5 trillion of the market value erased from U.S. indexes. This is mostly because of the impact of the tariffs on different U.S. businesses. Trump had criticized Canada for its trade protections and threatened to increase the tariffs on cars coming from Canada into the U.S. Analysts are watching out for the next step from Canada and the U.S. Canadians cancel trips to U.S. amid trade war.
I was planning a trip to LA to see a friend. However, we decided to go to Mexico instead.
A new survey warns 30% of Canadians who had trips to the U.S. planned have now canceled them as tensions rise between the two countries. From the dispute over tariffs triggering boos for the American anthem, President Trump's talk of making Canada the 51st state. Canadians are vowing to make...
With the tensions between the U.S. and Canada over the trade war, Canadian travelers are avoiding stepping into the U.S., even if it's just a layover. It has caused a drop in border traffic between U.S. and Canada, as Canadians now prefer to go to Mexico and everywhere else as long as it's not the U.S. With these boycotts over Trump's trade war, tourism is declining and companies are changing their ad campaigns. Many Canadians have said that they refuse to spend their money in the U.S. and are looking for alternative destinations that bypass the U.S., even without a connection or layover. According to a survey by Ledger, the Canadian market researcher, 2/3 of Canadians have said that they will reduce their purchases of American products in stores and online. 59% of Canadians also said they are less likely to visit the U.S. this year. Also, 30% of Canadians with plans to travel to the U.S. have said that they have canceled them. In 2024, Canadians made about 20.4 million visits to the U.S. This number was expected to increase by more than 1 million in 2025, according to the U.S. Travel Association. But the industry group recently warned that if these visits drop by 10%, it can cost $2.1 billion in lost spending and 14,000 jobs. Already, there has been a 23% drop in Canadian car trips to the U.S. Canadian businesses look for new partners.
As they stockpile products, lay off some staff, and look for new trade partners.
This is the dumbest trade war in history, and it's getting dumber every day.
The head of Ontario's Chamber of Commerce says, with Trump's behavior in mind, some businesses are looking for more dependable alternatives.
And you're already seeing Canadian businesses look for new partners in Europe, in Asia, and Latin America, where we have trade agreements and we have countries that actually value the alliances with us.
Canadian businesses, especially those in Ontario, are now preparing for the future period of stability caused by Trump's tariffs. These businesses are looking for new trading partners and allies due to the uncertainty caused by the tariff war. Ontario businesses have said that the tariff war has undermined the decades of trust built between the two countries. Due to this uncertainty, they are now planning to avoid doing business with the U.S. in the future. The CEO of Ontario Chamber of Commerce had said, "The White House has shown itself to be unreliable, untrustworthy, and uncoordinated. I think the worry is that even if we do get to a deal, there's no guarantee that later in his term, the president won't turn on us again." How Canada can fight Trump tariffs.
And he says Trump's threats and his tone leave Canada no choice but to find new markets, new partners.
It's been a wake-up call, right? It's been a wake-up call for Canadians that we need to figure out a way to not be as dependent.
This rift goes beyond what Canadians see as Trump's bad math. They are furious at his bad manners, his constant insults, calling Canada the 51st state and its prime minister governor.
We've been in this together for a long time. We fought wars together. We went to Afghanistan. We did all this stuff together. Why? What are you doing here?
Now everyone is wondering, how can Canada fight against Trump's tariffs? Canada has already planned to react forcefully against the tariffs imposed by President Trump. Before stepping down as Prime Minister, Trudeau had revealed 4 possible plans that could be used to fight against the U.S. For one, Canada could make targeted tariffs on particular U.S. goods. Canada has already started with this, retaliating with tariffs on billions of Canadian dollars worth of goods. But some Canadian officials have revealed their plans to place tariffs on specific U.S. goods like Florida orange juice and whiskey and bourbon from Kentucky and Tennessee. There have also been plans to place tariffs on Teslas. Another strategy is dollar-to-dollar tariffs, another move that Canada has already made. It has already slapped identical tariffs on U.S. aluminum and steel, so the total value of American goods is taxed equally to that of the Canadian goods. The more Trump imposes tariffs, the more Canada will do the same. One of Canada's most valuable assets against the U.S. is energy. States like New York, Vermont, and Maine rely on the electricity sold to them by Canada. Also, many states receive energy imports from Canada, as Canada is the top supplier of crude oil to the U.S. Although this would also hurt Canada as it hurts the U.S., it can be a good move for Canada to stop the trade war. The final strategy that some Canadian officials have stated is not retaliating for now. Rather than engaging with the U.S., Canada can focus more on diversifying its trade relationships and reducing its reliance on American trade. With all its natural resources, Canada can trade with other countries, increase its domestic production, and also provide relief to the businesses harmed by tariffs. The future of U.S.-Canada trade.
But what both angles miss is the underlying truth, which is this isn't over.
Donald Trump hasn't said anything is permanently gone.
Take Canada as an example. Yes, Donald Trump said this country is finally taking its border seriously. Yes, he nodded to its big billion-dollar concession, the appointment of a fentanyl czar, listing drug cartels as terrorists. He's very pleased. But then, at the very end, the tariffs announced on Saturday will be paused for a 30-day period to see whether or not a final economic deal with Canada can be structured. At which point, it's like, wait, economic deal? What are we talking about? Wasn't this about fentanyl and illegal immigration and border security? But now the tariffs are explicitly contingent on more?
How can the trade war between the United States and Canada finally end? The United States and Canada have been allies for a long time due to their shared global interest and physical proximity. Experts have warned that the shifting trade policies between the two countries will make the U.S. an unreliable partner, affecting the future trade with Canada. Right now, it's unclear on how long Trump's tariffs will last, especially since he has a history of altering, pausing, or canceling some of these tariffs. Trudeau has already announced that if the tariffs continue, then Canada will also continue with their retaliatory tariffs. But as it's been said, there's no true winner in a trade war. Canada's counterattack in this tariff war has crippled the U.S. economy, and no one expected it to go this way. How bad do you think the tariff war would get, and who will come up on top? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for watching.